Welcome, dear friend, to another evening with Sleepy Science. Tonight, we are stepping away from distant galaxies and microscopic particles. We are setting aside equations and experiments for something closer, something softer. Tonight, we are entering a garden, a place where science unfolds slowly, quietly, in the soil and sunlight. We are going to explore vegetables, those humble, colorful gifts from the earth that grow in silence, sustained by processes both simple and miraculous. These are the plants that have fed civilizations, sparked discoveries, and revealed the hidden mechanisms of life itself. They are ordinary, they are everywhere. And yet, within each one lies a universe of biology, chemistry, and wonder waiting to be understood. Before we begin, if these gentle explorations bring you peace, consider leaving a like or sharing a thought in the comments below. It helps others find this quiet space, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, you need do nothing but settle in, breathe deeply, and let the stories of growing things carry you softly towards sleep. Let us begin. Carrots were not always orange, and their color comes from carotenoids. If you picture a carrot in your mind, you likely see a bright orange root, tapered and smooth. But for most of history, carrots came in shades of purple, white, yellow, and red. Orange carrots are actually a relatively recent development, cultivated in the Netherlands during the 1600s. Dutch growers selectively bred carrots to enhance their orange pigment, possibly in tribute to William of Orange, the leader of the Dutch revolt against Spain. The orange color comes from beta-carotene, a pigment molecule that also gives color to pumpkins, sweet potatoes, and apricots. Beta-carotene belongs to a family of compounds called carotenoids, which plants produce to absorb light energy during photosynthesis and to protect themselves from damage. When we eat carrots, our bodies convert beta-carotene into vitamin A, essential for vision, immune function, and cell growth. The carrot's journey from wild, bitter root to the sweet orange vegetable we know today is a story of selective breeding, a process where humans choose which plants to grow based on desired traits. Over generations, these choices amplified certain characteristics, creating entirely new varieties. Every carrot you eat is the descendant of that careful work, a living thread connecting you to gardeners who worked the soil centuries ago, guided by observation, patience, and an understanding of how plants change over time. Tomatoes were once feared as poisonous, but they are actually nutrient-dense nightshades. When tomatoes first arrived in Europe from the Americas in the 1500s, they were met with suspicion and fear. Their leaves and stems belong to the nightshade family, which includes several toxic plants like belladonna and mandrake. People feared that the fruit itself might be deadly. Wealthy Europeans sometimes ate tomatoes off pewter plates, and the acidity of the tomato would leach lead from the metal, causing poisoning. This reinforced the belief that tomatoes themselves were dangerous. For centuries, tomatoes were grown mainly as ornamental plants, admired for their bright red and yellow fruits, but not consumed. The science behind this fear was not entirely unfounded. Tomato leaves and stems do contain alkaloids, like tomatine, which can be toxic in large amounts. However, the fruit itself contains only trace amounts and is perfectly safe to eat. It was not until the 1700s and 1800s that tomatoes became accepted as food, first in Mediterranean countries like Italy and Spain, and later in Northern Europe and North America. The transformation was slow. Trust had to be rebuilt through experimentation and observation. Today, we know that tomatoes are rich in lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that gives them their red color and may help protect against certain diseases. They also contain vitamin C, potassium, and folate. The tomato's journey from feared curiosity to beloved staple is a reminder that scientific understanding evolves, that what we fear today may become what we cherish tomorrow. Potatoes store energy as starch through a process called polymerization. The potato originated in the Andes Mountains of South America, where indigenous peoples cultivated it for thousands of years. It was hardy, nutritious, and able to grow in harsh climates where other crops failed. When Spanish explorers brought potatoes to Europe in the late 1500s, they did not immediately catch on. People were suspicious of this knobby, dirt-covered tuber. But gradually, the potato proved itself through its remarkable biology. A potato is actually a modified stem called a tuber, which grows underground. The plant produces these tubers as a way to store energy for future growth. This energy is stored primarily as starch, a complex carbohydrate made of long chains of glucose molecules bonded together through a process called polymerization. When you eat a potato, your digestive system breaks these starch chains back down into individual glucose molecules, which your body uses for energy. Potatoes are incredibly efficient at this storage. A single acre of potatoes can produce more calories than an acre of wheat or corn. This made them invaluable in Europe, especially in Ireland, where they became the primary food source for millions by the 1700s. The Irish population grew rapidly, supported almost entirely by potato cultivation. But this dependence also brought tragedy. When a fungal pathogen called Phytophthora infestans, the cause of potato blight, swept through Ireland in the 1840s, it destroyed entire harvests. The fungus attacked the potato plant's leaves and stems, spreading through airborne spores and thriving in cool, wet conditions. The result was the Great Famine, one of the most devastating events in Irish history. Over 1 million people died, and millions more emigrated. The science of plant pathology, the study of plant diseases, emerged partly in response to this catastrophe. Scientists worked to understand how diseases spread and how to develop resistant varieties. Today, potatoes remain one of the world's most important crops, grown on every continent. They are fried, mashed, roasted, and baked. The humble potato carries within it lessons about energy storage, plant biology, and the importance of genetic diversity in crop populations. Lettuce contains lactucarium, a mild sedative compound. Lettuce is one of humanity's oldest crops, cultivated for over 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptians grew it as early as 2600 BCE, valuing it not only as food, but as a symbol. In Egyptian art, lettuce was associated with fertility and abundance. The ancient Greeks and Romans also cultivated lettuce, developing several varieties. But there is something else interesting about lettuce from a scientific perspective. Wild lettuce and some cultivated varieties contain a milky white sap called lactucarium, which has mild sedative and pain-relieving properties. This sap is produced in the plant's stems and leaves as a defense mechanism against herbivores. Lactucarium contains compounds similar to opiates, though much weaker. In the 1800s, lactucarium was sometimes used in medicine as a gentle sedative, earning lettuce the nickname poor man's opium. While modern cultivated lettuce contains far less lactucarium than wild varieties, some people still report feeling relaxed after eating lettuce, especially in the evening. The science behind this is not fully understood, but it may be related to both the lactucarium content and lettuce's nutritional profile. Lettuce contains folate and other nutrients that support the production of neurotransmitters involved in mood and sleep regulation. Over millennia, lettuce has spread across the world, bred into countless forms. Crisp iceberg, tender butterhead, peppery arugula, frilly red leaf. Each variety has its own texture, flavor, and chemical composition. Lettuce is a simple, green, often overlooked. But it is also a window into plant chemistry, a reminder that even the mildest vegetables contain complex compounds that interact with our bodies in subtle ways. Onions make you cry because of sulfur chemistry. Onions have been a part of human culture since before recorded history. In ancient Egypt, they were so valued that workers building the pyramids were paid in onions, garlic, and radishes. These vegetables provided strength and nutrition for laborers performing grueling work under the desert sun. But anyone who has sliced an onion knows they have a particular property that sets them apart. They make you cry. This is not random, it is chemistry. When you cut into an onion, you damage its cells, releasing enzymes that were previously separated from certain sulfur-containing compounds. These enzymes and compounds mix and react, producing a volatile gas called syn-propanethyl S oxide. This gas is lighter than air and quickly rises toward your face. When it reaches your eyes, it dissolves in the moisture there and forms sulfuric acid, a mild irritant. Your eyes respond to this irritation by producing tears to flush away the irritant. It is a defense mechanism, not just for you, but for the onion. In nature, this chemical reaction protects the onion from being eaten by animals. The burning sensation discourages herbivores from taking a second bite. Throughout history, onions have been fundamental to nearly every cuisine. They grow quickly, store well, and add flavor through their sulfur compounds, the same chemistry that makes you cry. These compounds also have health benefits. They have antibacterial properties and may support cardiovascular health. During the Middle Ages, onions were used as currency and as medicine. Doctors prescribed them for ailments ranging from headaches to heart disease. Onions are layers upon layers, both physically and chemically. To slice an onion is to engage with sulfur biochemistry, to experience firsthand how plants defend themselves, and to participate in a culinary tradition that spans thousands of years. Broccoli is a human invention created through selective breeding. Broccoli does not exist in the wild. It was carefully cultivated by Italian farmers over 2,000 years ago from wild cabbage, a plant native to the Mediterranean, called Brassica oleracea. Through selective breeding, farmers encouraged the plant to produce larger, denser flower clusters, which eventually became the broccoli we recognize today. This is the same species of plant that gave us cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and collard greens. Each of these vegetables looks completely different, yet they all share the same wild ancestor. This is a powerful demonstration of artificial selection, the process by which humans choose which individuals in a population reproduce based on desired traits. Over many generations, this selection can produce dramatic changes. In broccoli's case, farmers selected for plants that produced large, tight clusters of flower buds before they opened. The green florets we eat are actually unopened flowers. If you let broccoli continue growing, those buds would open into small yellow flowers. The Romans enjoyed broccoli, and it remained popular in Italy for centuries before spreading to other parts of Europe and the world. In the United States, broccoli did not become widely popular until the 20th century, when Italian immigrants brought their culinary traditions with them. Today, broccoli is celebrated for its nutritional value. It is packed with vitamin C, vitamin K, fiber, and compounds called glucosinolates, which break down during digestion into substances that may have anti-cancer properties. But broccoli is also a testament to human ingenuity and our ability to reshape the natural world. It is not a gift from nature. It is a creation, shaped slowly over generations by people who looked at a wild plant and imagined something different, something better suited to their needs. Cucumbers are over 90% water and use osmosis to stay hydrated. Cucumbers have been cultivated for at least 3,000 years, originating in India. They are one of the most hydrating vegetables, composed of more than 90% water. This high water content makes them incredibly refreshing, especially in hot climates. But how does a cucumber maintain this water content while growing in soil that may be much drier? The answer lies in osmosis, a process fundamental to all life. Osmosis is the movement of water across a semi-permeable membrane from an area of lower solute concentration to an area of higher solute concentration. In a cucumber plant, the roots absorb water from the soil through osmosis. The cells in the roots contain dissolved minerals and sugars, creating a higher solute concentration inside the cells than in the surrounding soil water. Water naturally moves into the root cells to balance this concentration difference. Once inside the plant, water travels up through specialized vessels called xylem, eventually reaching the fruit. The cucumber fruit stores this water in its cells, maintaining turgor pressure, which keeps it firm and crisp. If a cucumber loses too much water through evaporation, it becomes soft and wilted. Ancient civilizations, including the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, all grew cucumbers. Roman Emperor Tiberius reportedly ate cucumbers every day, and his gardeners developed early greenhouse techniques to grow them year-round. Cucumbers spread along trade routes, reaching China, Europe, and eventually the Americas. They became a staple in many cultures, eaten fresh, pickled, or added to salads and soups. The science of pickling cucumbers is also fascinating. It relies on fermentation, a process where beneficial bacteria convert sugars into lactic acid, creating an acidic environment that preserves the vegetable and develops complex flavors. Cucumbers are more than just water. They are lessons in plant physiology, osmosis, and preservation, wrapped in a cool, crisp package. Peppers contain capsaicin, a compound that tricks pain receptors. Before 1492, peppers existed only in the Americas. Indigenous peoples in Central and South America cultivated them for thousands of years, developing an extraordinary range of shapes, sizes, colors, and heat levels. When Christopher Columbus encountered peppers in the Caribbean, he brought them back to Europe, mistakenly calling them peppers because of their spicy flavor, similar to black pepper, though they are not related. The heat in peppers comes from a compound called capsaicin, which is concentrated in the white membranes inside the fruit. Capsaicin is fascinating from a neurological perspective. It binds to receptors in your mouth called TRPV1 receptors, which normally respond to heat and physical abrasion. When capsaicin activates these receptors, your brain interprets the signal as burning pain, even though no actual tissue damage is occurring. This is why eating spicy food feels hot. Your brain is being tricked. The plant produces capsaicin as a defense mechanism against mammals, which would destroy the seeds by chewing. Interestingly, birds are not affected by capsaicin. They can eat peppers without feeling any heat, and they help disperse the seeds. This is an example of coevolution, where two species evolve in response to each other. When humans eat capsaicin, our bodies respond by releasing endorphins, natural pain-relieving compounds that create a sense of pleasure. This is why some people enjoy spicy food. They are experiencing a kind of controlled pain that triggers a pleasurable response. From Europe, peppers spread rapidly across the globe. Portuguese traders brought them to Africa and Asia. They were embraced in India, Thailand, China, and Korea, where they became essential to local cuisines. Today, it is hard to imagine Korean kimchi without gochugaru, Thai curry without bird's eye chilies, or Hungarian goulash without paprika. Peppers transformed global food culture through chemistry and neuroscience. They crossed oceans, adapted to new climates, and became woven into the culinary identity of countless cultures. Peas helped discover the laws of inheritance through Mendel's experiments. Peas have been part of the human diet for over 10,000 years. Archaeological evidence suggests that wild peas were gathered and eaten in the Near East long before agriculture began. When humans started farming, peas were among the first crops they chose to cultivate. They were easy to grow, nutritious, and dried well for storage. Ancient civilizations in Greece, Rome, and China all relied on peas. In medieval Europe, dried peas became a staple food, especially during Lent when meat was forbidden. But peas' greatest contribution to science came in the 19th century. Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk, used pea plants to conduct experiments that would revolutionize our understanding of inheritance. Between 1856 and 1863, Mendel grew and observed thousands of pea plants in the monastery gardens. He chose peas because they had several distinct, easy-to-observe traits. Seed color could be yellow or green. Seed shape could be round or wrinkled. Pod color could be green or yellow. Flowers could be purple or white. Mendel carefully cross-pollinated plants with different traits and tracked how these traits appeared in subsequent generations. Through meticulous observation and mathematical analysis, he discovered that traits are inherited in predictable patterns. He found that some traits are dominant while others are recessive, and that these traits are passed on through discrete units, which we now call genes. Mendel's work was largely ignored during his lifetime, but it was rediscovered in the early 1900s and became the foundation of genetics. Today, we understand that genes are sequences of DNA that code for proteins, and that they are passed from parents to offspring through reproduction. The pea plant, humble and unassuming, helped unlock the secrets of heredity and laid the groundwork for modern biology, medicine, and agriculture. Every time you eat a pea, you are tasting a piece of scientific history. Spinach contains iron, but also oxalic acid that reduces absorption. Spinach originated in ancient Persia, modern-day Iran, over 2,000 years ago. It was cultivated there and eventually spread to India and China along trade routes. Arab traders brought spinach to the Mediterranean during the medieval period, and it was introduced to Europe by the Moors in Spain around the 11th century. Spinach quickly became popular because it was hardy, fast-growing, and nutritious. By the 1400s, it was a common vegetable across Europe. Spinach became especially associated with health in the 20th century, when it was falsely believed to contain exceptionally high levels of iron. This myth likely originated from a decimal point error in an 1870 study, which was repeated in subsequent publications. The cartoon character Popeye, who gained superhuman strength by eating spinach, popularized this idea. While the iron content was exaggerated, spinach does contain iron, along with many other valuable nutrients. However, there is an interesting scientific caveat. Spinach also contains oxalic acid, a compound that binds to iron and other minerals like calcium, forming insoluble complexes that your body cannot absorb well. This means that while spinach contains iron, your body may only absorb a small percentage of it. The oxalic acid also gives spinach a slightly bitter taste and can contribute to the formation of kidney stones in susceptible individuals. Cooking spinach can reduce its oxalic acid content somewhat, making the nutrient slightly more bioavailable. Despite this, spinach remains highly nutritious. It is rich in vitamins A, C, and K, as well as folate, magnesium, and antioxidants like lutein and zeaxanthin, which support eye health. Spinach is a reminder that nutrition is complex, that the presence of a nutrient does not always equal its bioavailability, and that our bodies interact with food in intricate, sometimes surprising ways. Beets contain betalains, pigments that can change urine color. Beets, also known as beetroot, have been cultivated since ancient times. The earliest records come from the Mediterranean and Middle East, where people initially grew beets for their leaves, not their roots. The ancient Greeks and Romans used beet leaves as food, but they valued the roots primarily for medicinal purposes. It was not until the 16th century that beets began to be cultivated for their sweet, earthy roots as a food crop. Beets get their distinctive deep red-purple color from pigments called betalains, specifically beta-cyanins. These are different from the anthocyanins found in most other red and purple plants. Betalains are unique to beets and a few related plants. They have antioxidant properties and may support liver function and reduce inflammation. One of the most noticeable effects of eating beets is bituria, a harmless condition where your urine turns pink or red. This happens because betalain pigments are not always fully broken down during digestion. They pass through your system and are excreted, coloring your urine. Not everyone experiences bituria. It depends on stomach acidity, gut bacteria, and individual digestive chemistry. For some people, seeing red urine after eating beets can be alarming, but it is completely harmless and temporary. The development of the sugar beet in the 18th century changed everything. Scientists discovered that certain beet varieties contained high levels of sucrose, making them suitable for sugar production. During the Napoleonic Wars, when access to sugarcane was blocked, Europe turned to sugar beets as an alternative. Today, sugar beets supply nearly half of the world's sugar. The process of extracting sugar from beets involves washing, slicing, and heating the beets to release the sucrose, then purifying and crystallizing it. Beets are a study in plant chemistry, a lesson in pigments, sugars, and the unexpected ways that what we eat can affect our bodies. Cauliflower comes in many colors due to different pigments. Cauliflower, like broccoli, is a cultivated descendant of wild cabbage, developed over centuries through selective breeding, primarily in the Mediterranean region. For most of history, cauliflower was white, prized for its mild flavor and tender texture. The white color is actually the absence of chlorophyll. As cauliflower develops, the large leaves surrounding the head block sunlight from reaching the developing florets, preventing chlorophyll production. This is called blanching. In recent decades, farmers and seed companies have reintroduced colorful varieties. Purple cauliflower gets its hue from anthocyanins, the same antioxidant pigments found in red cabbage, blueberries, and purple grapes. These pigments are produced in response to sunlight and may offer health benefits, including reduced inflammation and improved heart health. Orange cauliflower contains more beta-carotene, the same pigment that colors carrots. This variety was developed through natural breeding, not genetic modification, and provides more vitamin A than white cauliflower. Green cauliflower, sometimes called broccoflower, is a hybrid that produces chlorophyll, giving it a color closer to broccoli and a slightly sweeter taste. These colorful varieties are not new inventions. They are rediscoveries based on older heirloom seeds that were nearly forgotten as white cauliflower became standard. The existence of these varieties demonstrates the incredible diversity within a single species and the power of plant pigments. Chlorophyll, carotenoids, and anthocyanins all serve different functions in plants, from photosynthesis to protection from UV damage, and they all offer different nutritional benefits to us. Cauliflower's ability to appear in so many forms is a testament to genetic variation and human cultivation. Radishes grow fast because of rapid cell division. Radishes are among the fastest growing vegetables. Some varieties can go from seed to harvest in less than a month. This makes them ideal for beginner gardeners and for filling gaps between slower crops. But what makes radishes grow so quickly? The answer lies in cellular biology. When a radish seed germinates, the embryonic plant inside begins to grow through cell division and cell elongation. Radishes are particularly efficient at both processes. Their cells divide rapidly through mitosis, creating new cells. And these new cells then elongate quickly, increasing the size of the plant. This growth is fueled by the energy stored in the seed and by photosynthesis once the first leaves emerge. The radish plant directs much of this energy into developing its taproot, the swollen root we eat. This root serves as an energy storage organ for the plant, similar to a potato or carrot. The plant is essentially preparing to reproduce. If left in the ground, the radish would eventually send up a flower stalk, bloom, and produce seeds, using the energy stored in its root. Radishes have been cultivated for thousands of years, likely originating in Southeast Asia. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans all grew radishes. In Japan, the daikon radish became a dietary staple, valued for its crisp texture and mild flavor. Radishes come in many shapes, sizes, and colors. Round red globes, long white daikons, black Spanish radishes, and even watermelon radishes with green skin and pink flesh. Despite their speed and simplicity, radishes offer lessons in plant physiology and growth. They demonstrate how plants allocate resources, how quickly life can develop under the right conditions, and how genetic programming guides a seed from dormancy to maturity in a matter of weeks. Zucchini belongs to Cucurbita pepo and contains mostly water and fiber. Zucchini, also called courgette, is a variety of summer squash that originated in the Americas. Indigenous peoples in Central and South America cultivated squash for thousands of years, developing countless varieties. Squash belongs to the genus Cucurbita, which includes pumpkins, gourds, and other squashes. When European explorers brought squash back to Europe, Italian gardeners took particular interest. They selectively bred a variety with tender skin and mild flavor, which became known as zucchini, meaning little squash in Italian. Zucchini became a staple of Italian cuisine, used in everything from pasta to fritters to baked goods. From a nutritional standpoint, zucchini is mostly water, similar to cucumbers, making it very low in calories. It also contains fiber, which supports digestive health, and various vitamins and minerals, including vitamin C, vitamin A, potassium, and folate. Zucchini's mild flavor and high water content make it incredibly versatile. It can be eaten raw, grilled, roasted, or even spiralized into noodles. Zucchini grows abundantly. Gardeners often joke about having more zucchini than they know what to do with. A single plant can produce dozens of fruits throughout the growing season. This productivity is related to the plant's reproductive strategy. Each zucchini is actually the swollen ovary of the squash flower. The plant produces both male and female flowers, and pollination must occur for the fruit to develop. Once pollinated, the ovary swells rapidly, growing into a mature zucchini in just a few days. This rapid fruit development is an efficient way for the plant to produce many seeds. From a botanical perspective, zucchini is fascinating because it demonstrates how plant reproduction and human cultivation intersect to create the foods we eat. Sweet potatoes store energy in tuberous roots and are unrelated to regular potatoes. Despite their similar names, sweet potatoes and regular potatoes are completely unrelated. Sweet potatoes belong to the morning glory family, Convolvulaceae, while regular potatoes are part of the nightshade family, Solanaceae. Sweet potatoes originated in Central or South America over 5,000 years ago and spread throughout the tropics. They were cultivated by indigenous peoples long before European contact. Like regular potatoes, sweet potatoes store energy underground, but in a slightly different structure. A sweet potato is a tuberous root, a swollen root that stores starch and sugars. A regular potato, as mentioned earlier, is a tuber, which is a modified stem. Both serve the same function, storing energy for the plant, but they develop from different parts of the plant. Sweet potatoes are particularly interesting because of their sugar content. As they mature, and especially after harvest, enzymes in the sweet potato convert some of the stored starch into sugars, making them sweeter. This process is enhanced by cooking. Roasting sweet potatoes at a relatively low temperature for a long time allows enzymes to work, breaking down starches into maltose and other sugars, creating an incredibly sweet flavor. Sweet potatoes come in many varieties. Orange-fleshed varieties are high in beta-carotene. Purple-fleshed varieties contain anthocyanins. White-fleshed varieties have a more neutral flavor. When Spanish and Portuguese explorers encountered sweet potatoes, they brought them to Europe, Africa, and Asia. Sweet potatoes thrived in warm climates and became a crucial crop in many regions. In some African and Asian countries, sweet potatoes became a staple food, valued for their sweetness, nutrition, and ability to grow in poor soil. Sweet potatoes are lessons in plant anatomy, carbohydrate chemistry, and the diversity of strategies plants use to store energy. Eggplants produce solanine as a defense mechanism. Eggplants, also known as aubergines, originated in India and Southeast Asia. They have been cultivated for thousands of years, initially for their beauty rather than their taste. Early varieties were often small, round, and white or yellow, resembling eggs, which is how they got their English name. When eggplants were introduced to Europe and the Middle East, they were met with suspicion. Like tomatoes and potatoes, they belonged to the nightshade family, Solanaceae, and were feared to be poisonous. This fear was not entirely without basis. Eggplants, like other nightshades, produce alkaloid compounds as a defense mechanism against pests and diseases. The primary alkaloid in eggplants is solanine, which is also found in potato skins, especially when they turn green from sun exposure. In large amounts, solanine can be toxic, causing nausea, vomiting, and neurological symptoms. However, the levels of solanine in ripe eggplant fruit are very low and generally considered safe. Unripe or overly mature eggplants may contain slightly higher levels, which can contribute to a bitter taste. Cooking also reduces alkaloid content. For a time, eggplants were grown mainly as decorative plants in Europe. It was not until the Middle Ages that they became widely accepted as food, first in the Middle East and Mediterranean, where they became essential to dishes like baba ganoush, moussaka, and caponata. Today, eggplants come in many shapes and colors. Long and slender Japanese eggplants, round and plump Italian varieties, deep purple, white, green, or striped. The skin of purple eggplants contains anthocyanins, the same antioxidant pigments found in purple cauliflower and berries. The flesh of eggplant is spongy, made up of cells with lots of air pockets, which allows it to absorb flavors when cooked. Understanding the chemistry of eggplants helps us appreciate both their culinary versatility and the complex defensive strategies plants use to survive. Cabbage can be fermented because of lactic acid bacteria. Cabbage is one of the hardiest and most versatile vegetables, a member of the Brassica family. It can be grown in cool climates, stored for months, and eaten raw, cooked, or fermented. For centuries, cabbage was a staple food in Europe, especially in northern regions where other crops struggled. One of the most important ways to preserve cabbage is through fermentation, a process that transforms fresh cabbage into sauerkraut or kimchi. Fermentation is a metabolic process carried out by microorganisms, primarily bacteria. When cabbage is shredded, salted, and packed tightly in a container, it creates an anaerobic environment, meaning oxygen is excluded. In this environment, beneficial bacteria called lactic acid bacteria, particularly lactobacillus species, thrive. These bacteria consume the sugars in the cabbage and produce lactic acid as a byproduct. The accumulation of lactic acid lowers the pH, creating an acidic environment that preserves the cabbage and prevents the growth of harmful bacteria. This process also develops complex flavors and increases the bioavailability of certain nutrients. Fermented vegetables contain probiotics, live beneficial bacteria that support gut health. During the age of exploration, sailors faced a deadly enemy on long voyages, scurvy, a disease caused by vitamin C deficiency. Fresh fruits and vegetables were hard to keep on ships, but cabbage could be preserved through fermentation. Sauerkraut retained its vitamin C content and could last for months. Captain James Cook famously carried barrels of sauerkraut on his voyages, and none of his crew died from scurvy, a remarkable achievement at the time. The science of fermentation was not well understood until the 1800s, when Louis Pasteur demonstrated that fermentation was caused by living microorganisms, not spontaneous generation. This discovery revolutionized food preservation and laid the groundwork for microbiology. Cabbage, through fermentation, teaches us about microbiology, biochemistry, and the ways humans have learned to work with bacteria to create nutritious, long-lasting foods. Asparagus is a perennial that can photosynthesize underground. Asparagus is one of the few perennial vegetables, meaning it grows back year after year from the same roots. However, it requires patience. After planting asparagus crowns, gardeners must wait 2 to 3 years before the first harvest. During this time, the plant establishes a deep, extensive root system. But once mature, an asparagus bed can produce spears for 15 to 20 years or more. The spears we eat are actually young shoots that emerge from the crown in early spring. If left unharvested, they grow into tall, feathery ferns. These ferns photosynthesize, producing energy that is stored in the roots for next year's growth. What makes asparagus particularly interesting is that the spears begin to photosynthesize even before they emerge from the soil. Asparagus spears contain chlorophyll and can produce energy from light even when they are still underground, pushing through the soil. This gives them the energy needed for the rapid growth that characterizes asparagus. A spear can grow several inches in a single day under the right conditions. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans all cultivated asparagus. It was prized as a delicacy, enjoyed by royalty and the wealthy. Roman Emperor Augustus was so fond of asparagus that he coined the phrase "faster than cooking asparagus" to describe something done quickly. Asparagus has a unique chemical composition that leads to an interesting phenomenon. After eating asparagus, many people notice that their urine has a distinctive odor. This is caused by the breakdown of asparagusic acid, a sulfur-containing compound found only in asparagus. When digested, it breaks down into several volatile sulfur compounds, which are excreted in urine and produce the characteristic smell. Interestingly, not everyone can smell these compounds. The ability to detect the odor is genetic, controlled by variations in olfactory receptor genes. Asparagus teaches us about perennial growth strategies, photosynthesis, sulfur biochemistry, and the genetic variation in human sensory perception. Corn was domesticated through ancient genetic modification. Corn, or maize, is one of humanity's greatest agricultural achievements. It was domesticated by indigenous peoples in southern Mexico over 9,000 years ago from a wild grass called teosinte. Teosinte looks almost nothing like modern corn. Its seeds are small, hard, and few in number, arranged in 2 rows. Compare this to a modern corn cob, which has hundreds of soft, sweet kernels arranged in many rows. The transformation from teosinte to corn is so dramatic that for many years, scientists debated whether they were even related. Genetic analysis has now confirmed that corn is indeed descended from teosinte, but the changes required were extensive. Ancient farmers selected plants with favorable mutations, larger kernels, more rows, softer seed coats. Over thousands of years, these selections accumulated, creating a plant that could no longer survive in the wild. modern corn is completely dependent on humans for reproduction. The kernels are too tightly attached to the cob to disperse naturally. In a sense, corn and humans have co-evolved. We shaped corn to meet our needs, and corn shaped human societies. It became the foundation of civilizations in the Americas, including the Maya, Aztec, and Inca. It was sacred, woven into mythology and ritual. From a genetic perspective, corn demonstrates the power of selective breeding. The process ancient farmers used was a form of genetic modification, changing the plant's DNA over generations by choosing which individuals reproduced. Modern genetic modification uses different techniques, directly inserting genes, but the principle is similar, identifying desired traits and working to enhance them. Today, scientists study corn genetics to understand how traits are inherited and controlled. The corn genome has been fully sequenced, revealing the genetic changes that occurred during domestication. Corn is not just a crop. It is a living record of human ingenuity and the partnership between people and plants. Garlic releases allicin when cells are damaged. Garlic is one of the oldest cultivated plants, with a history stretching back over 5,000 years. It was used by ancient Egyptians, who fed it to workers building the pyramids for strength and endurance. The ancient Greeks gave garlic to athletes before competitions and to soldiers before battle. In ancient Rome, garlic was considered food for the common people, but it was also valued for its medicinal properties. Throughout history, garlic has been used to treat infections, digestive issues, and heart problems. The reason garlic has such powerful effects comes down to chemistry. Garlic contains sulfur compounds, particularly one called alliin. When garlic is crushed, chopped, or chewed, an enzyme called alliinase is released. This enzyme converts alliin into allicin, a compound responsible for garlic's distinctive smell and many of its health benefits. Allicin is unstable and quickly breaks down into other sulfur compounds, which have antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral properties. During World War I and World War II, garlic was used as an antiseptic to treat wounds when antibiotics were scarce. It earned the nickname Russian penicillin. Modern science has confirmed many of garlic's health benefits. Studies suggest that garlic compounds can boost the immune system, reduce blood pressure, improve cholesterol levels, and have antioxidant effects. The sulfur compounds in garlic are also responsible for the lingering odor on your breath and skin after eating it. These compounds are absorbed into your bloodstream, then exhaled through your lungs and excreted through your pores. The science of garlic demonstrates how plant chemistry serves dual purposes, defending the plant from pests and diseases while also providing benefits to humans who consume it. Garlic is pungent and powerful, a living pharmacy in a bulb. Kale contains glucosinolates that break down into bioactive compounds. Kale is one of the oldest members of the cabbage family, Brassica oleracea, cultivated for over 2,000 years. In medieval Europe, kale was everywhere. It grew easily, tolerated cold weather, and provided nutrition through harsh winters. For centuries, it was a staple food for peasants and the poor, often cooked into soups and stews. Kale fell out of favor as other vegetables became more popular, but in recent decades, it has experienced a resurgence, celebrated for its nutritional density. Kale is rich in vitamins K, A, and C, as well as minerals like calcium, potassium, and magnesium. It also contains powerful compounds called glucosinolates. These are sulfur-containing compounds found in all members of the Brassica family. When you chew kale, or when it is cut or cooked, an enzyme called myrosinase is released. This enzyme breaks down glucosinolates into bioactive compounds called isothiocyanates and indoles. These compounds have been studied for their potential health benefits, including anti-cancer properties. They may help detoxify carcinogens, reduce inflammation, and protect cells from DNA damage. The breakdown of glucosinolates also contributes to the distinctive smell and taste of cooked kale and other brassicas. Kale comes in many varieties. Curly kale has ruffled, textured leaves. Dinosaur kale, also called lacinato kale, has dark, bumpy leaves. Red Russian kale has purple stems and frilly leaves. Each variety has its own flavor profile and nutrient composition. Kale is also remarkably cold hardy. In fact, its flavor improves after a frost. Cold temperatures cause the plant to convert some of its starches into sugars, making it sweeter and less bitter. This is a survival mechanism. The sugars act as natural antifreeze, protecting the plant's cells from ice crystal formation. Kale teaches us about plant biochemistry, cold adaptation, and the complex compounds that make vegetables both flavorful and nutritious. Celery has negative calories, but the science is more complex. Celery has a long history, dating back to ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. However, for most of that history, it was not eaten as a vegetable. Instead, celery was used as a medicinal plant and as a flavoring herb. It was not until the 1700s that celery was cultivated as a food crop in Europe, with Italian gardeners developing sweeter, more tender varieties. Today, celery is often described as a negative calorie food, meaning it supposedly takes more energy to digest than it provides. This claim is based on celery's very low calorie content, about 6 calories per stalk, and its high fiber and water content. The idea is that the energy required for chewing and digesting celery exceeds the calories it contains. However, the science does not quite support this. While celery is very low in calories, and your body does burn calories during digestion, a process called the thermic effect of food, the energy expended is not enough to create a true negative calorie situation. The thermic effect of food typically accounts for about 10% of the calories in the food itself. So, digesting a 6-calorie stalk of celery might burn less than 1 calorie. That said, celery is still an excellent food for weight management because it is filling, hydrating, and nutritious while providing minimal calories. It contains vitamins K and C, potassium, and folate. Celery also contains compounds called phthalides, which give it its distinctive aroma and may have blood pressure-lowering effects. Some people find that eating large amounts of celery can make their skin more sensitive to sunlight, a condition called photosensitivity, caused by compounds called psoralens. Understanding the science behind celery helps us separate myth from reality and appreciate what this humble vegetable actually offers: hydration, nutrients, and very few calories. Leeks concentrate sulfur compounds in concentric layers. Leeks are part of the allium family, related to onions, garlic, and shallots. They have been grown for thousands of years, with evidence of cultivation in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. The Romans prized leeks, and Emperor Nero reportedly ate them regularly, believing they improved his singing voice, earning him the nickname Porophagus, or leek eater. Leeks became especially associated with Wales, where they are a national symbol. From a botanical perspective, leeks are interesting because of how they grow. Unlike onions, which form a bulb, leeks develop a long cylindrical stalk made up of tightly wrapped leaf bases. As the plant grows, it continually produces new leaves from the center, and the outer leaves elongate, creating concentric layers. Gardeners often hill soil up around the base of growing leeks to blanch the lower portion, keeping it white and tender. The white part is prized because it is milder and more delicate than the tough green leaves. Leeks, like other alliums, contain sulfur compounds that give them their characteristic flavor. When you cut a leek, these compounds are released, though they are milder than those in onions. Leeks do not make you cry the way onions do, because they produce less of the volatile compounds responsible for eye irritation. However, they still contain allicin and other sulfur compounds that have antibacterial properties and potential health benefits. Leeks grow slowly, taking several months to mature. During this time, they build up sugars and develop their sweet, onion-like flavor. The slow growth and layered structure of leeks make them a study in patience and gradual development. To clean a leek properly, you must slice it lengthwise and rinse between the layers, as soil often gets trapped there during growth. This process of peeling back layers to reveal what is hidden inside is both practical and metaphorical, a reminder that understanding often requires careful examination. Turnips undergo cold sweetening through biochemistry. Turnips have been cultivated in Europe and Asia for thousands of years. They are hardy, fast-growing, and able to thrive in poor soil and cold climates. For much of history, turnips were considered peasant food, a humble root vegetable eaten by those who could afford little else. During times of famine and hardship, turnips often kept people alive. They could be stored through winter, eaten raw or cooked, and even fed to livestock. Like parsnips and kale, turnips undergo a process called cold sweetening when exposed to frost. This is a survival mechanism. When temperatures drop, the plant converts some of its stored starch into sugars. This increases the solute concentration in the plant's cells, lowering the freezing point and preventing ice crystals from forming and damaging the cells. From the plant's perspective, this is protection. From our perspective, it makes the turnip taste sweeter and less bitter. The biochemistry of cold sweetening involves enzymes that break down starch molecules into individual glucose units. These enzymes become more active at cooler temperatures, triggering the conversion. Turnips also contain glucosinolates, like other brassicas, which contribute to their peppery flavor when raw and become milder when cooked. During World War I and World War II, turnips became a symbol of scarcity in Germany. When food supplies dwindled, turnips were used as a substitute for bread, coffee, and other essentials. The winters of 1916 and 1917 became known as the turnip winter, a time of great hunger and hardship. Despite this difficult association, turnips remain a nutritious and versatile vegetable. They can be roasted, mashed, or pickled. They are a good source of vitamin C, fiber, and various minerals. Turnips teach us about plant biochemistry, adaptation to cold, and the resilience of foods that can sustain us through difficult times. Artichokes are immature flowers protected by bracts. Artichokes are one of the most unusual vegetables, both in appearance and origin. What we eat is not a root, stem, or leaf, but the unopened flower bud of a thistle plant. If left unharvested, the artichoke blooms into a stunning purple flower. The edible part consists of the fleshy base of the immature petals, called bracts, and the heart, which is the base of the flower before it opens. Artichokes have been cultivated in the Mediterranean for over 2,000 years. The ancient Greeks and Romans enjoyed them, though they were considered a luxury reserved for the wealthy. In medieval Europe, artichokes were believed to be an aphrodisiac and were often forbidden to women. Catherine de' Medici of France famously defied this taboo, openly enjoying artichokes at royal banquets. From a botanical perspective, artichokes are members of the thistle family, Asteraceae, the same family as sunflowers and lettuce. The fuzzy choke in the center of the artichoke is actually a mass of immature florets that would eventually develop into the flower. This part is inedible because of its texture, but it surrounds the prized heart. Artichokes contain a compound called cynarin, which is concentrated in the leaves and heart. Cynarin affects your taste receptors, making foods and drinks consumed after eating artichokes taste sweeter. This is because cynarin temporarily inhibits your sweet receptors. When the effect wears off, plain water can taste sweet. Artichokes also contain inulin, a type of fiber that serves as a prebiotic, feeding beneficial gut bacteria. Preparing an artichoke requires patience. The tough outer bracts must be peeled away, the choke removed, to reveal the tender heart. But the reward is worth the effort. The heart is buttery, delicate, and rich in flavor. Artichokes teach us that beauty and nourishment often require work, that some things worth having are protected, and that nature's strategies for reproduction can create extraordinary flavors. Parsnips sweeten through starch hydrolysis in cold weather. Parsnips are root vegetables closely related to carrots, both members of the Apiaceae family. They have been cultivated in Europe since Roman times, valued for their sweet, earthy flavor. Unlike many vegetables, parsnips actually taste better after exposure to frost. Cold temperatures trigger a biochemical process called starch hydrolysis. Starch is a polysaccharide, a long chain of glucose molecules bonded together. In warm conditions, parsnips store energy as starch. But when temperatures drop, enzymes called amylases become active. These enzymes break the bonds between glucose molecules, hydrolyzing the starch into individual sugars. This increases the sugar content of the root, making it noticeably sweeter. The process is similar to what happens in malting, where barley seeds are encouraged to break down their starches into sugars for brewing beer. In the parsnip, it is a survival mechanism. The increased sugar concentration lowers the freezing point of the plant's cellular fluids, protecting it from frost damage. For this reason, parsnips were traditionally harvested in late autumn or winter. In medieval Europe, parsnips were more popular than carrots and potatoes, neither of which were yet widely available. They were used in soups, stews, and even desserts. Parsnip wine was a common homemade beverage. When potatoes arrived in Europe, they gradually replaced parsnips as the go-to root vegetable. But parsnips never disappeared entirely. They remain a winter staple in many parts of Europe, often roasted alongside other root vegetables. Parsnips contain vitamins C and K, folate, and fiber. They also contain compounds called furanocoumarins, which can make your skin more sensitive to sunlight if you handle parsnips extensively and then expose your skin to UV light. This is a defense mechanism the plant uses to deter pests. Parsnips teach us about enzymatic activity, cold adaptation, and the ways plants transform themselves chemically to survive harsh conditions. Bok choy belongs to the rapid-cycling Brassica rapa species. Bok choy, also known as Chinese cabbage or pak choy, is one of the oldest cultivated vegetables in China. It has been grown for over 5,000 years, valued for its tender leaves and crisp stalks. Bok choy is a member of the species Brassica rapa, which also includes turnips, Napa cabbage, and various Asian greens. What makes Brassica rapa particularly interesting from a scientific perspective is its rapid life cycle. Some varieties can complete their entire life cycle, from seed to seed, in as little as 40 days. This has made Brassica rapa a model organism in plant biology research. Scientists use a variety called rapid cycling brassica, or fast plants, to study genetics, development, and evolution. These plants grow quickly under continuous light, allowing researchers to observe multiple generations in a short time. The rapid growth of bok choy and related plants is due to efficient cell division and elongation, similar to radishes. The plants allocate resources efficiently, producing leaves that photosynthesize effectively while developing the edible parts quickly. In Chinese cuisine, bok choy is a staple, used in stir-fries, soups, and dumplings. It is mild in flavor, with a slight sweetness and a satisfying crunch. The white stalks are crisp and juicy, while the dark green leaves are tender and cook quickly. Bok choy is nutrient-dense, providing vitamins A, C, and K, as well as calcium and folate. It also contains glucosinolates, like other brassicas, which break down into compounds that may offer health benefits. Bok choy has traveled along trade routes, eventually reaching Southeast Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Today, it is widely available and enjoyed around the world. It is a reminder that plants used in scientific research are often the same plants we eat, and that understanding their biology can deepen our appreciation for them. Brussels sprouts grow in a unique axillary arrangement. Brussels sprouts are small, round, and packed with flavor. They are a member of the Brassica oleracea species, like cabbage, broccoli, and kale, and were likely first cultivated in Belgium, hence their name. What makes Brussels sprouts unusual is how they grow. Unlike most vegetables, which form a single head or cluster, Brussels sprouts develop in the axils, the angle between the leaf stem and the main stalk. They grow in rows along a tall central stalk, sometimes over 3 feet high. Each plant can produce dozens of tiny cabbages, each one a miniature head of tightly packed leaves. This growth pattern is the result of selective breeding. Farmers encourage the plant to form these axillary buds rather than directing all its energy into a single terminal bud. From a developmental biology perspective, this demonstrates how plant architecture can be shaped by manipulating where the plant allocates its growth hormones, particularly auxins and cytokinins, which control bud development. Brussels sprouts have a reputation for being bitter, especially when overcooked. This bitterness comes from glucosinolates, the same sulfur compounds found in cabbage and kale. When Brussels sprouts are boiled for too long, these compounds break down into hydrogen sulfide, creating an unpleasant smell and intensified bitter taste. However, roasting Brussels sprouts at high heat caramelizes their natural sugars and reduces bitterness, creating a sweet, nutty flavor. The popularity of Brussels sprouts has increased in recent years as cooking methods have improved. People have learned that properly prepared Brussels sprouts, roasted, sautéed, or shaved raw, can be delicious. Brussels sprouts are nutrient-dense, rich in vitamins C and K, fiber, and antioxidants. They also contain compounds that may support detoxification and reduce inflammation. Brussels sprouts teach us about plant architecture, the chemistry of flavor, and how preparation methods can transform our experience of a food. Bell peppers change color as they ripen and develop different nutrients. When you see red, yellow, orange, and green bell peppers at the grocery store, you might assume they are different varieties. Sometimes they are, but often they are the same variety at different stages of ripeness. Green bell peppers are simply unripe peppers. If left on the plant, they will continue to mature, changing color as they ripen. The color change is due to shifts in pigment composition. Green peppers contain high levels of chlorophyll, the green pigment used in photosynthesis. As the pepper ripens, chlorophyll breaks down and other pigments become visible. Yellow peppers develop carotenoid pigments, similar to carrots. Orange peppers have higher levels of different carotenoids. Red peppers contain high levels of capsanthin and capsorubin, carotenoid pigments that give them their red color. The ripening process also changes the nutritional profile. Ripe peppers are sweeter because they have converted more starches into sugars. They also contain significantly more vitamin C than green peppers. A red bell pepper can have more than twice the vitamin C of a green one. They also have higher levels of vitamin A and various antioxidants. From a plant biology perspective, the color change serves a purpose. Bright colors attract animals that will eat the fruit and disperse the seeds. Green, Unripe fruits are often more bitter and less appealing, discouraging animals from eating them before the seeds are mature. Once the seeds are ready, the fruit ripens, becoming sweeter and more colorful, signaling that it is ready to be eaten. Bell peppers, like hot peppers, belong to the genus Capsicum, but they have been bred to produce little or no capsaicin, the compound that creates heat. This was achieved through selective breeding, choosing plants with mutations that reduced capsaicin production. The result is a sweet, mild pepper that can be eaten raw or cooked, stuffed, roasted, or added to countless dishes. Understanding the science of pepper ripening helps us appreciate the biological processes behind the food we eat and the way plants communicate through color and chemistry. Ginger is a rhizome that contains gingerol and related compounds. Ginger is not technically a vegetable, but rather a rhizome, an underground stem used by the plant to store nutrients and produce new shoots. Ginger has been cultivated for thousands of years, originating in Southeast Asia. It was one of the first spices to be traded globally, valued for its distinctive flavor and medicinal properties. The sharp, spicy taste of ginger comes from compounds called gingerols, which are chemically similar to capsaicin, the compound that makes peppers hot. When ginger is dried or cooked, gingerols are converted into shogols and zingarone, which have a slightly different flavor profile, less sharp and more warming. Ginger has been used in traditional medicine for millennia to treat nausea, digestive issues, and inflammation. Modern research has confirmed some of these effects. Studies suggest that ginger can help reduce nausea, particularly morning sickness in pregnancy and chemotherapy-induced nausea. Gingerols have anti-inflammatory properties and may help reduce muscle pain and soreness. Ginger also has antioxidant effects. From a plant biology perspective, ginger reproduces primarily through its rhizomes rather than seeds. A piece of rhizome with a growth bud can be planted and will develop into a new plant. This is called vegetative propagation. Many of the plants we grow for food, including potatoes, garlic, and turmeric, reproduce this way. It allows the plant to produce genetically identical offspring quickly, without the need for pollination and seed development. Ginger grows in tropical climates, requiring warm temperatures and high humidity. The plant produces tall, reed-like stems and attractive flowers, though it is the underground rhizome we harvest and consume. Ginger can be used fresh, dried, pickled, or ground into powder. It is a staple in cuisines around the world, from Asian stir-fries to Caribbean jerk seasonings to gingerbread cookies. Ginger teaches us about plant chemistry, medicinal compounds, and the ways plants store energy and reproduce. Carrots help you see at night because of vitamin A conversion. There is a popular belief that carrots help you see in the dark. This idea was actually propaganda promoted by the British Royal Air Force during World War II. They claimed their pilots' exceptional night vision was due to eating carrots, when in fact it was due to new radar technology. The British did not want the enemy to know about their technological advantage, so they attributed it to carrots. However, there is some truth to the connection between carrots and vision, though it is less dramatic than the myth suggests. Carrots are rich in beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A. Vitamin A is essential for vision, particularly for the function of photoreceptor cells in the retina. These cells contain a protein called rhodopsin, which requires vitamin A to function. Rhodopsin is especially important for low-light vision. Without adequate vitamin A, you can develop night blindness, a condition where your eyes struggle to adjust to dim light. So, eating carrots and other foods rich in beta-carotene can support healthy vision and prevent deficiency-related problems. However, if you already have adequate vitamin A levels, eating more carrots will not give you superhuman night vision. The body regulates vitamin A conversion and storage carefully. Excess beta-carotene is stored in fat tissues and can even cause a harmless condition called carotenemia, where your skin takes on a yellowish-orange tint. This is reversible and goes away when you reduce beta-carotene intake. The science of vision is complex. Light enters the eye, passes through the lens, and focuses on the retina. Photoreceptor cells, called rods and cones, convert light into electrical signals, which the brain interprets as images. Rods are responsible for low-light vision, while cones handle color and detail in bright light. Vitamin A is specifically needed for the regeneration of rhodopsin in rod cells. Understanding this process helps us appreciate why certain nutrients are essential and how deficiencies can impact our health. Potatoes have eyes because they are modified stems. If you have ever looked closely at a potato, you have probably noticed small indentations or bumps called eyes. These are not random. They are actually nodes on the modified stem that is the potato tuber. In a typical stem growing above ground, nodes are the points where leaves and branches emerge. In a potato, which grows underground, these nodes retain the potential to produce new growth. Each eye contains a bud that can sprout and develop into a new potato plant. This is why potatoes can be propagated by cutting a potato into pieces, each with at least one eye, and planting them. The buds will sprout, using the stored starch in the potato piece as energy until the new plant develops roots and leaves to support itself. The ability of potatoes to reproduce vegetatively, through tubers rather than seeds, has been crucial to their cultivation. It allows farmers to produce consistent crops without the genetic variation that comes from sexual reproduction. However, this also makes potatoes vulnerable to disease. Because most commercial potatoes are clones, if a disease affects one plant, it can easily spread to all genetically identical plants. This was part of the problem during the Irish potato famine. The potatoes grown in Ireland at the time were mostly a single variety with little genetic diversity, making the entire crop susceptible to the blight. Modern potato breeding programs work to develop varieties with resistance to diseases and pests, often using wild potato relatives that have evolved natural defenses. The eyes of a potato are a window into plant reproduction strategies, genetic propagation, and the agricultural challenges that come with cultivating clones. They remind us that even familiar foods have complex biology beneath their simple appearance. Mushrooms are not vegetables but fungi with unique biology. While mushrooms are often grouped with vegetables in cooking and nutrition, they are not plants at all. They are fungi, belonging to an entirely different kingdom of life. Fungi are more closely related to animals than to plants. Unlike plants, fungi do not photosynthesize. They cannot produce their own food from sunlight. Instead, they obtain nutrients by decomposing organic matter or forming symbiotic relationships with plants. The mushroom we eat is actually just the fruiting body of a much larger organism. Below ground, or within decaying wood, a network of thread-like structures called mycelium spreads through the substrate. This mycelium is the main body of the fungus, absorbing nutrients and growing throughout its environment. When conditions are right, the mycelium produces mushrooms, which are reproductive structures designed to release spores. Spores are like seeds, but much smaller and simpler. They are dispersed by wind, water, or animals, and if they land in a suitable environment, they germinate and form new mycelium. Mushrooms have a unique nutritional profile. They are one of the few non-animal sources of vitamin D. When exposed to sunlight or UV light, mushrooms can synthesize vitamin D2, just as human skin does. They also contain B vitamins, minerals like selenium and potassium, and various bioactive compounds. Some mushrooms, like shiitake and maitake, contain polysaccharides that may support immune function. From an ecological perspective, fungi are essential decomposers. They break down dead plant and animal matter, recycling nutrients back into the soil. Some fungi form mycorrhizal relationships with plant roots, helping plants absorb water and nutrients in exchange for sugars produced by photosynthesis. This partnership is crucial for forest health and plant growth. Mushrooms have been foraged and cultivated for thousands of years. In China, shiitake mushrooms were cultivated as early as 1000 CE. Today, mushroom cultivation is a global industry, with varieties ranging from common button mushrooms to exotic oyster and lion's mane varieties. Understanding that mushrooms are fungi, not vegetables, opens up a new appreciation for their unique biology, ecology, and nutritional value. Seaweed is not a vegetable but algae with ocean-based nutrients. Like mushrooms, seaweed is often used as a vegetable in cooking, but it is not a plant in the traditional sense. Seaweed refers to various species of marine algae, ranging from tiny single-celled organisms to massive kelp forests. Algae are photosynthetic, like plants, and they produce much of the oxygen in our atmosphere. However, they lack the complex tissues and structures of land plants. They do not have roots, stems, or leaves in the true botanical sense. Instead, they have structures adapted to ocean life. Kelp, for example, has a holdfast that anchors it to rocks, a stipe similar to a stem, and blades that float near the surface to capture sunlight. Seaweed has been consumed by coastal cultures around the world for thousands of years, particularly in East Asia. In Japan, nori, wakame, and kombu are staples used in sushi, soups, and broths. In Korea, miok is traditionally eaten for health and celebration. In Ireland and Scotland, dulse and other seaweeds have been harvested for centuries. Seaweed is nutritionally unique. It is one of the few plant sources of iodine, a mineral essential for thyroid function. The ocean concentrates iodine, and seaweeds absorb it from the water. Some varieties contain so much iodine that excessive consumption can actually lead to thyroid problems. Seaweed also contains vitamins, minerals, and unique polysaccharides like alginates and carrageenans, which are used as thickening agents in many processed foods. From a sustainability perspective, seaweed is gaining attention as a food source. It grows rapidly, requires no fresh water, no fertilizer, and no land. It also absorbs carbon dioxide and can improve water quality by removing excess nutrients. Seaweed farming is expanding in many parts of the world as people recognize its potential as a nutritious, environmentally friendly food. Understanding seaweed as algae rather than plants helps us appreciate the diversity of photosynthetic life on Earth and the different strategies organisms use to capture energy from the sun. The tomato is botanically a fruit, but legally a vegetable. One of the most famous botanical debates involves the tomato: is it a fruit or a vegetable? From a botanical perspective, the answer is clear. A fruit is the mature ovary of a flowering plant containing seeds. By this definition, tomatoes are fruits, along with cucumbers, peppers, eggplants, and squash. A vegetable, in botanical terms, refers to other edible parts of plants, roots, stems, leaves. However, in culinary and legal contexts, the definition changes. Vegetables are generally savory and used in main dishes, while fruits are sweet and used in desserts. By this definition, tomatoes are vegetables. This distinction became legally significant in the United States in 1893, when the Supreme Court ruled on the case Nix versus Hedden. At the time, imported vegetables were taxed, but fruits were not. The case centered on whether tomatoes should be classified as fruits or vegetables for tariff purposes. The court ruled that although tomatoes are botanically fruits, they should be classified as vegetables for trade and tax purposes because of how they are used in cooking. This decision highlights the difference between scientific and common language. and how context matters in classification. From a nutritional science perspective, whether we call a tomato a fruit or vegetable matters less than understanding its nutritional content. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, vitamin C, potassium, and folate. The scientific classification does not change their health benefits. This debate teaches us about the limitations of categories and the importance of context. Language serves different purposes in different fields. A botanist, a chef, and a lawyer might all have valid but different reasons for classifying a tomato as they do. It reminds us that knowledge is not just about facts, but about how we organize and communicate them. Vegetables contain phytonutrients that benefit human health. Beyond basic vitamins and minerals, vegetables contain thousands of bioactive compounds called phytonutrients or phytochemicals. These are substances plants produce for their own protection and survival, but many of them also benefit human health when consumed. Phytonutrients include carotenoids, flavonoids, glucosinolates, polyphenols, and many others. Each class has different effects. Carotenoids, found in orange and red vegetables, are antioxidants that protect cells from damage. Flavonoids, abundant in colorful vegetables, have anti-inflammatory properties. Glucosinolates, found in broccoli and cabbage, may support detoxification. The interesting thing about phytonutrients is that they often develop in response to stress. When a plant is attacked by insects, exposed to UV radiation, or grown in poor soil, it produces more defensive compounds. Some of these compounds have hormetic effects in humans, meaning that small amounts of stress-inducing compounds can actually trigger beneficial, adaptive responses in our bodies. This is sometimes called xenohormesis, the idea that mild stressors from plant compounds can activate our own stress response systems in a way that improves resilience and health. For example, resveratrol in grapes, sulforaphane in broccoli, and quercetin in onions all activate cellular pathways that protect against oxidative stress and inflammation. This is one reason why organic vegetables, which may be exposed to more natural stresses, sometimes contain higher levels of certain phytonutrients. The science of phytonutrients is still evolving. Researchers are discovering new compounds and pathways regularly. What we know is that a diet rich in diverse vegetables provides a wide array of these beneficial compounds, each working in slightly different ways to support health. Eating a variety of colors and types of vegetables ensures that we get a broad spectrum of phytonutrients. This is why nutritionists often recommend eating the rainbow, choosing vegetables of different colors to maximize nutritional diversity. Squash produces massive fruits through cell expansion. Squash, in all its varieties, belongs to the genus Cucurbita. This includes pumpkins, zucchini, butternut squash, acorn squash, and many others. Some squash varieties can produce truly massive fruits. Giant pumpkins, for example, can weigh over 2,000 pounds. How does a plant produce something so large? The answer lies in cell expansion and water uptake. Unlike animal growth, which involves creating more cells, much of plant growth comes from individual cells getting larger. Plant cells have rigid cell walls made of cellulose, but they also have large internal compartments called vacuoles. These vacuoles can fill with water, causing the cell to expand dramatically. In squash fruits, cells can expand to enormous sizes, stretching the cell walls without breaking them. This expansion is driven by osmotic pressure. The plant transports sugars and other solutes into the fruit, creating a high solute concentration. Water follows by osmosis, inflating the cells. Giant pumpkin growers optimize every factor to maximize this growth. They provide abundant water, nutrients, and protect the fruit from stress. Under ideal conditions, a giant pumpkin can gain dozens of pounds per day. Squash plants also demonstrate interesting reproductive strategies. They produce separate male and female flowers. Male flowers appear first, producing pollen. Female flowers have a small swelling at the base, the immature fruit. Pollinators, usually bees, must transfer pollen from male to female flowers for fruit to develop. Once pollinated, the tiny fruit begins to grow, powered by photosynthesis in the plant's large leaves. The leaves capture sunlight and produce sugars, which are transported to the developing fruit. Squash has been cultivated for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence from Mexico shows squash seeds dating back 10,000 years, making it one of the earliest domesticated plants. Different cultures developed different varieties suited to their climates and needs. Winter squash, with hard skins and dense flesh, could be stored for months. Summer squash, tender and quick-growing, provided fresh vegetables. Understanding squash biology reveals the power of cell expansion, the importance of pollination, and the ancient partnership between humans and plants. Kohlrabi is a swollen stem that grows above ground. Kohlrabi is one of the strangest-looking vegetables, resembling a pale green or purple sphere, with leaves sprouting from it like antennae. The name comes from German, meaning cabbage turnip, which is fitting because kohlrabi is related to cabbage and resembles a turnip. However, unlike a turnip, which is a swollen root, kohlrabi is a swollen stem. The edible bulb forms just above the soil surface. It is actually the stem of the plant that has enlarged, storing water and nutrients. This type of structure is called a caudex. Kohlrabi is another member of Brassica oleracea, the incredibly diverse species that also gave us broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts. The fact that such different vegetables all come from the same species demonstrates the power of selective breeding and the plasticity of plant development. In kohlrabi's case, farmers selected for plants that developed thick, fleshy stems, rather than directing energy to leaves or flower buds. Kohlrabi has a mild, slightly sweet flavor with a crisp texture similar to broccoli stems. It can be eaten raw, roasted, or added to soups. It is popular in German and Eastern European cuisines. Nutritionally, kohlrabi provides vitamin C, fiber, and various minerals. Like other brassicas, it contains glucosinolates, which contribute to its flavor and potential health benefits. From a botanical perspective, kohlrabi demonstrates how different plant organs can be modified through cultivation. Roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and seeds can all be enlarged and altered to create new forms of food. Understanding plant morphology helps us appreciate the creativity and experimentation of farmers over millennia. Horseradish produces heat through enzymatic reactions. Horseradish is a root vegetable known for its intensely sharp, sinus-clearing heat. Unlike the heat of peppers, which comes from capsaicin, horseradish produces a different kind of spiciness. The heat comes from compounds called isothiocyanates, particularly allyl isothiocyanate. These compounds are not present in intact horseradish root. Instead, the root contains glucosinolates and an enzyme called myrosinase, stored in separate cellular compartments. When you grate or cut horseradish, you damage the cells, allowing the enzyme and substrate to mix. Myrosinase breaks down the glucosinolates, releasing isothiocyanates. These volatile compounds evaporate quickly, rising into your nose and triggering a sharp, burning sensation. The reaction is similar to what happens in mustard and wasabi, both of which also contain glucosinolates and myrosinase. The intensity of horseradish decreases over time as the isothiocyanates evaporate. This is why freshly grated horseradish is much stronger than prepared horseradish that has been sitting for a while. Adding vinegar to grated horseradish stops the enzymatic reaction, preserving some heat while preventing it from becoming overwhelmingly strong. Horseradish has been used for thousands of years, originating in Eastern Europe. The ancient Greeks used it as a medicine. In Jewish tradition, horseradish is one of the bitter herbs eaten during Passover, symbolizing the bitterness of slavery. During the Middle Ages, horseradish was used to treat coughs, joint pain, and digestive issues. Modern research has confirmed some medicinal properties. Isothiocyanates have antibacterial effects and may support the immune system. They also have antioxidant properties. Horseradish is a lesson in plant chemistry and defense mechanisms. The compounds that protect the plant from herbivores also create the flavors we enjoy. Understanding how these compounds are produced and released helps us appreciate the complexity hidden in every root. Watercress grows in flowing water and is nutrient-dense. Watercress is a member of the Brassicaceae family, related to mustard, cabbage, and horseradish. It grows naturally in cool, shallow streams and springs, where flowing water provides constant moisture and nutrients. The plant has small, round leaves and a peppery flavor, similar to arugula. Watercress has been consumed for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks, Romans, and Persians all valued it as both food and medicine. Roman soldiers ate watercress to prevent scurvy on long campaigns. In Victorian England, watercress was so popular that street vendors sold it by the bunch, and watercress farms supplied cities. From a nutritional perspective, watercress is extraordinarily dense in vitamins and minerals. Gram for gram, it provides more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, more iron than spinach, and more folate than bananas. A study by the Centers for Disease Control ranked watercress as the #1 powerhouse fruit and vegetable based on nutrient density. The plant's growth in flowing water is key to its nutrition. The constant flow brings dissolved minerals from upstream, which the plant absorbs through its roots. Watercress can even extract nutrients from very dilute solutions, making it an efficient accumulator. However, this also means watercress can absorb pollutants if grown in contaminated water. Commercial watercress is grown in carefully controlled spring-fed beds to ensure purity. Watercress contains glucosinolates, like other brassicas. When chewed, these break down into isothiocyanates, which give watercress its peppery bite and may have health benefits. Research suggests that watercress compounds can support detoxification, protect DNA from damage, and have anti-cancer properties. Watercress is a reminder that some of the most nutritious foods grow in unexpected places, that flowing water connects ecosystems and concentrates nutrients, and that traditional foods often have scientific explanations for their health benefits. Fennel has a licorice flavor from Anatole. Fennel is a distinctive vegetable with a bulbous white base, feathery green fronds, and a strong licorice-like flavor. This flavor comes from a compound called Anatole, an aromatic molecule found in the essential oils of fennel, anise, and star anise. Anatole is much sweeter than sugar, about 13 times sweeter by weight, though it is present in small amounts. It binds to sweet receptors on the tongue, creating a sweet flavor, but also has an aromatic quality that gives the characteristic licorice taste. Fennel has been used since ancient times, originating in the Mediterranean. The ancient Greeks called it marathon, after the town of Marathon, which was named for the wild fennel that grew there. Romans ate fennel and believed it improved eyesight and gave courage. In medieval Europe, fennel seeds were chewed to suppress hunger during fasting periods. The part of fennel we commonly eat as a vegetable is actually the swollen base of the leaf stalks, which form a bulb-like structure. This is not a true bulb like an onion, but a collection of tightly wrapped leaf bases. The fronds and seeds are also edible and used as herbs and spices. Fennel contains fiber, vitamin C, potassium, and phytonutrients. Anatole has been studied for its potential health effects, including anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Fennel seeds are often used to aid digestion and reduce bloating. From a botanical perspective, fennel belongs to the Apiaceae family, which includes carrots, celery, parsley, and dill. Many members of this family produce aromatic compounds in their essential oils, giving them distinctive flavors and medicinal properties. The evolution of these compounds likely served as defense against herbivores, but humans learned to value them for flavoring and medicine. Fennel teaches us about plant chemistry, the diversity of flavors in nature, and how a single compound can dramatically define a plant's identity. Rhubarb leaves are poisonous, but stems are edible. Rhubarb is unusual because it is one of the few plants where one part is edible and another is toxic. The thick, tart stems are commonly used in cooking, especially in pies and jams. However, the large green leaves contain high levels of oxalic acid and anthraquinone glycosides, which are poisonous. Consuming rhubarb leaves can cause nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and in large amounts, kidney damage. The stems also contain oxalic acid, but in much lower concentrations, making them safe to eat. The tartness of rhubarb comes from this oxalic acid, along with malic acid and other organic acids. Rhubarb is often classified as a vegetable, but in the United States, a court ruling in 1947 declared it a fruit for regulatory purposes because it is commonly used in sweet dishes. This is another example of culinary classification overriding botanical reality. Rhubarb originated in Siberia and Mongolia, where it was used medicinally for thousands of years. The dried root was valued as a laxative and digestive aid, traded along the Silk Road. Rhubarb was so valuable in medieval Europe that it was worth more than opium or saffron. Culinary use of rhubarb stems developed in England in the 1700s, when sugar became more widely available. The combination of tart rhubarb and sweet sugar created a popular flavor profile. Rhubarb plants are perennial, sending up fresh stems each spring from a crown that persists underground. They require cold winters to thrive, entering dormancy and then emerging vigorously when temperatures warm. From a safety perspective, rhubarb teaches the importance of knowing what parts of plants are edible. Many plants produce toxins in certain organs while keeping others safe for consumption. This selective toxicity often relates to reproduction, protecting seeds and reproductive organs while allowing animals to disperse other parts. Understanding plant toxins helps us navigate the natural world safely and appreciate the complexity of plant defense strategies. Okra produces a mucilaginous substance from polysaccharides. Okra is known for its distinctive slimy texture, which many people either love or hate. This sliminess comes from mucilage, a thick, gluey substance composed of polysaccharides. When okra is cut and cooked, especially in water, these polysaccharides are released. They are long chains of sugar molecules that hold water, creating a gel-like consistency. From a plant biology perspective, mucilage serves several functions. It helps seeds retain moisture during germination. It can protect plant tissues from drying out. In okra's case, the mucilage is found in the seed pods and may help protect the developing seeds. For humans, okra's mucilage can be either a benefit or a drawback, depending on culinary goals. In gumbo, a traditional Louisiana dish, okra's sliminess helps thicken the stew, creating a characteristic texture. The name gumbo actually comes from a West African word for okra. In other dishes, cooks try to minimize sliminess by using high heat, adding acidic ingredients like tomatoes or vinegar, or cooking okra whole without cutting it. Okra originated in Africa and has been cultivated for thousands of years. It was brought to the Americas during the slave trade and became an important crop in the southern United States. Okra is heat-loving and drought-tolerant, thriving in conditions that challenge other vegetables. Nutritionally, okra is rich in vitamins C and K, folate, and fiber. The mucilage itself is a type of soluble fiber that may help regulate blood sugar and support digestive health. Some research suggests it can help lower cholesterol. Okra seeds can also be dried and ground to make a coffee substitute, though this is less common today. Understanding the chemistry of okra mucilage helps us appreciate why this vegetable behaves the way it does in cooking and how traditional cuisines have learned to use its unique properties to advantage. Endive and escarole are bitter due to lactucin. Endive and escarole are leafy greens in the chicory family, Asteraceae, closely related to lettuce. They are known for their distinctive, bitter flavor, which sets them apart from milder salad greens. This bitterness comes from compounds called sesquiterpene lactones, particularly lactucin and lactucopicrin. These are the same compounds found in lettuce, but in much higher concentrations. Sesquiterpene lactones are defense compounds that protect the plant from herbivores and pests. Their bitter taste discourages animals from eating the leaves. In humans, these compounds interact with bitter taste receptors on the tongue, creating the characteristic flavor. Interestingly, sensitivity to bitterness varies among individuals due to genetic differences in taste receptors. Some people are extremely sensitive to bitter compounds, while others are less affected. This is one reason why food preferences vary so much. Endive and escarole have been cultivated in Europe for centuries, particularly in France, Italy, and Belgium. Belgian endive, also called witloof, is grown in a unique way. The plants are grown in fields. Then the leafy tops are removed, and the roots are forced to produce new growth in complete darkness. This absence of light prevents chlorophyll production, resulting in pale yellow leaves with a milder, less bitter flavor. The process was discovered by accident in Belgium in the 1850s, when a farmer stored chicory roots in his cellar and found pale shoots growing. From a nutritional perspective, these bitter greens are rich in vitamins A and K, folate, and fiber. The bitter compounds themselves may have health benefits. Some research suggests they can stimulate digestion, support liver function, and have anti-inflammatory effects. Bitterness is an often underappreciated flavor in modern diets, which tend to favor sweetness. However, many traditional cuisines embrace bitterness as part of a balanced flavor profile. Understanding the chemistry of bitterness can help us appreciate these flavors and the plants that produce them. Jicama is a root that stays crisp because of inulin. Jicama is a root vegetable native to Mexico, where it has been cultivated for thousands of years. It has a thin brown skin and crisp white flesh with a mildly sweet, nutty flavor. The texture is similar to a raw potato or crisp apple. Jicama is unique because it remains crisp even after cooking, unlike most vegetables that soften with heat. This crispness is due to its high content of inulin, a type of fiber made up of fructose chains. Inulin is not easily broken down by heat or by human digestive enzymes, which gives jicama its persistent texture and also means that much of its fiber passes through the digestive system intact. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber, meaning it serves as food for beneficial gut bacteria. When these bacteria ferment inulin in the colon, they produce short-chain fatty acids that support gut health and may have anti-inflammatory effects. However, for some people, consuming large amounts of inulin can cause gas and bloating as the bacteria produce gas during fermentation. Jicama is low in calories but rich in vitamin C and potassium. In Mexican cuisine, it is commonly eaten raw, sliced, and sprinkled with lime juice and chili powder. It adds a refreshing crunch to salads and slaws. The plant that produces jicama is a legume related to beans and peas. It produces above-ground vines with toxic seeds and pods. Only the underground tuber is edible. The plant uses nitrogen-fixing bacteria in root nodules, allowing it to grow in poor soils. Understanding jicama's composition reveals how plant storage strategies create different textures and nutritional profiles. The inulin that helps the plant store energy also provides unique benefits and challenges for human digestion. Cassava must be processed to remove cyanogenic glycosides. Cassava, also known as manioc or yucca, is a starchy root vegetable that is a staple food for over 500 million people worldwide, particularly in Africa, South America, and Asia. It is incredibly productive, growing in poor soils and dry conditions where other crops fail. However, cassava contains cyanogenic glycosides, compounds that can release cyanide when the plant tissue is damaged. When cassava is eaten raw or improperly prepared, enzymes in the plant break down these glycosides, releasing hydrogen cyanide, a deadly poison. The amount varies by variety. Sweet cassava has lower levels and can be cooked and eaten like potatoes. Bitter cassava has much higher levels and requires extensive processing. Traditional preparation methods remove most of the cyanide. These include peeling, grating, soaking in water, fermenting, and cooking. Water-soluble cyanogenic glycosides leach out during soaking. Heat destroys the enzymes and evaporates residual cyanide. Communities that rely on cassava have developed detailed knowledge of safe preparation passed down through generations. If cassava is not properly processed, chronic exposure to low levels of cyanide can lead to health problems, including neurological damage and thyroid issues. This demonstrates the importance of traditional food knowledge and proper preparation techniques. From a plant biology perspective, cyanogenic glycosides are a defense mechanism. They deter herbivores by making the plant toxic. Cassava evolved in South America and was domesticated thousands of years ago. When Portuguese traders brought it to Africa and Asia in the 16th century, it became a crucial crop because of its reliability and productivity. Today, cassava is processed into flour, starch, and tapioca. It is used to make bread, porridge, and desserts. The starch is used industrially in products from paper to biodegradable plastics. Cassava teaches us about plant toxins, the importance of processing and preparation, and how humans have learned to safely consume plants that would otherwise be dangerous. Swiss chard has colorful stems from betalains. Swiss chard is a leafy green vegetable related to beets, both belonging to the species Beta vulgaris. While beets were bred for their swollen roots, chard was bred for its large, flavorful leaves and crunchy stems. One of the most striking features of chard is the vibrant color of its stems, which can be red, yellow, orange, pink, or white. These colors come from betalain pigments, the same compounds that color beets. Red and pink stems contain beta-cyanins, while yellow and orange stems contain beta-xanthins. The intensity of color varies based on genetics and growing conditions. Chard has been cultivated in the Mediterranean for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks and Romans grew it, and Aristotle wrote about red chard in the 4th century BCE. Despite its name, Swiss chard is not from Switzerland. The Swiss in its name may come from a Swiss botanist who described the plant, or it may be a corruption of an old French word. Nutritionally, chard is a powerhouse. It is one of the best sources of vitamin K, important for blood clotting and bone health. It also provides vitamins A and C, magnesium, potassium, and iron. Like beets, chard contains oxalic acid, which can bind to calcium and reduce its absorption. Cooking chard reduces oxalic acid content. The betalains in chard have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. They may support liver function and detoxification. Some people notice red or pink urine after eating large amounts of chard, similar to bacteria after eating beets. This is harmless. Growing chard is easy. It tolerates heat and cold, grows quickly, and can be harvested multiple times by cutting outer leaves and allowing the center to continue growing. Understanding chard's connection to beets, its pigmentation, and its nutritional density helps us appreciate the diversity created through selective breeding. Taro is a root that requires cooking to destroy calcium oxalate crystals. Taro is a starchy root vegetable that has been cultivated in tropical and subtropical regions for thousands of years. It is a staple in Pacific Island, Asian, and African cuisines. The corms, underground storage organs, are similar to potatoes in use, but they have a unique characteristic. Raw taro contains calcium oxalate crystals, needle-shaped structures that can cause intense itching and burning if they come in contact with your mouth and throat. These crystals are a defense mechanism. When an animal bites into raw taro, the crystals pierce soft tissues, causing immediate discomfort and discouraging further consumption. Cooking taro at high temperatures breaks down these crystals, making it safe to eat. The traditional method of pounding cooked taro to make poi, a staple in Hawaiian cuisine, further reduces any remaining crystals. Taro has been cultivated in Asia and the Pacific for at least 7,000 years, possibly longer. It was a primary food source in ancient Hawaii, Samoa, and other Pacific islands. In Asia, taro is used in both savory and sweet dishes, from curries to desserts. The plant is also notable because it grows in wetlands, often cultivated in flooded fields, similar to rice paddies. This allows cultivation in areas unsuitable for other crops. Taro leaves are also edible after thorough cooking, which destroys the oxalate crystals present in them as well. Nutritionally, cooked taro is rich in carbohydrates, fiber, potassium, and various vitamins. It is easily digestible and hypoallergenic, making it suitable for people with food sensitivities. Taro flour is sometimes used as an alternative to wheat. Understanding the science behind taro's defense mechanisms and the importance of proper preparation highlights the knowledge embedded in traditional cuisines and the care needed when working with certain plants. Celeriac is the root of a variety of celery. Celeriac, also called celery root, is a variety of celery bred for its large, bulbous root rather than its stalks. Despite its knobbly, unattractive appearance, celeriac has a delicate, celery-like flavor with nutty undertones. It has been cultivated in Europe, particularly in France and Germany, for centuries. Celeriac is the same species as stalk celery, Apium graveolens, but selective breeding emphasized root development rather than leaf and stem development. This is another example of how a single species can be shaped into very different forms. Celeriac can be eaten raw or cooked. When raw, it has a crisp texture and is often used in salads, such as the French dish celery remoulade, where shredded celeriac is dressed with a mustard mayonnaise. When cooked, celeriac becomes soft and creamy, making it excellent for soups, purees, and gratins. It can be used as a lower carbohydrate substitute for potatoes. Nutritionally, celeriac provides fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, phosphorus, and potassium. It is low in calories and has a low glycemic index, making it suitable for people managing blood sugar. From a botanical perspective, celeriac demonstrates how root morphology can be modified through cultivation. The root swells and stores nutrients, becoming large enough to be a useful food source. This storage strategy is similar to carrots, parsnips, and beets, but each plant has been bred from different wild ancestors. Celeriac also contains compounds called phthalides, which give celery its characteristic aroma and may have health benefits, including helping to lower blood pressure. Growing celeriac requires patience, as it takes several months to develop a sizable root. But the reward is a versatile vegetable that stores well through winter, providing fresh flavor when other vegetables are scarce. Jerusalem artichokes are neither from Jerusalem nor artichokes. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, have one of the most misleading names in the vegetable world. They are not from Jerusalem, and they are not related to artichokes. They are actually the tubers of a species of sunflower, Helianthus tuberosus, native to North America. The Jerusalem part of the name may be a corruption of girasole, the Italian word for sunflower, or it may refer to a perceived similarity in flavor to artichokes. The plant produces tall stems with bright yellow flowers similar to sunflowers. Underground, it develops knobby tubers that can be harvested in autumn and winter. These tubers have a sweet, nutty flavor and a crisp texture when raw, becoming soft and creamy when cooked. Jerusalem artichokes were cultivated by Native American tribes long before European contact. When European explorers encountered them, they brought them back to Europe, where they became popular, particularly in France. However, they fell out of favor over time, overshadowed by potatoes. The tubers store their energy as inulin, the same fiber found in jicama. This makes them low in starch, but high in prebiotic fiber. While this is beneficial for gut health, it can also cause digestive discomfort. Inulin is fermented by gut bacteria, producing gas. Jerusalem artichokes have earned the nickname fartichokes because of this effect. Despite this drawback, they are nutritious, providing iron, potassium, and thiamine. Jerusalem artichokes are hardy and productive, sometimes too much so. The plants can become invasive, as any small piece of tuber left in the ground can sprout a new plant. From a sustainability perspective, they are a low-input crop, requiring little fertilizer or water. Understanding the true identity of Jerusalem artichokes and their nutritional characteristics helps us appreciate this unusual vegetable and navigate its effects on digestion. Rutabaga is a hybrid between cabbage and turnip. Rutabaga, also called swede or yellow turnip, is a root vegetable with an interesting origin. It is a natural hybrid between a cabbage and a turnip, both members of the Brassica genus. This hybridization likely occurred spontaneously in Scandinavia during the Middle Ages, when these crops were grown near each other. Pollen from one species fertilized the flowers of the other, creating offspring with characteristics of both parents. Over time, farmers selected plants that produced large, sweet roots, developing the rutabaga we know today. Rutabagas are larger than turnips, with yellow or orange flesh and a sweet, earthy flavor. They are hardy, cold-tolerant vegetables that can withstand frost and store well through winter. Like other brassicas, rutabagas contain glucosinolates and are rich in vitamin C, fiber, and potassium. The hybrid nature of rutabagas is an example of how new crop species can arise. Many plants we eat are hybrids, either occurring naturally or created intentionally by plant breeders. Hybridization can combine desirable traits from different species, creating plants with improved yield, flavor, or resilience. From a genetic perspective, hybridization increases diversity and can lead to evolutionary innovation. In agriculture, it is a powerful tool for crop improvement. Rutabagas became particularly important in Northern Europe and Scotland, where they were grown as both human food and livestock feed. During times of scarcity, they provided reliable nutrition. Today, rutabagas are less common than they once were, but they remain a staple in traditional dishes like haggis and root vegetable mashes. Understanding the hybrid origin of rutabagas reminds us that evolution and agriculture are not separate processes, that crops are dynamic and continue to change, and that the diversity of vegetables we enjoy is the result of both natural processes and human cultivation. Radicchio is a red chicory with anthocyanin pigments. Radicchio is a leafy vegetable that looks like a small red cabbage, but is actually a type of chicory. It has deep burgundy leaves with white ribs and a distinctively bitter flavor. The red color comes from anthocyanin pigments, the same compounds that color red cabbage, blueberries, and many other red and purple fruits and vegetables. Anthocyanins are produced in response to various environmental triggers, including cold temperatures and light exposure. In radicchio, the pigments develop as the plant matures, particularly in cooler weather. Anthocyanins are powerful antioxidants. They protect plant cells from damage caused by UV radiation and oxidative stress. When humans consume anthocyanins, they provide similar protective effects, potentially reducing inflammation and supporting cardiovascular health. Radicchio's bitterness comes from sesquiterpene lactones, the same compounds found in endive and escarole. The combination of bitterness and striking color makes radicchio a distinctive addition to salads and cooked dishes. In Italy, where radicchio is especially popular, it is often grilled or roasted, which mellows the bitterness and brings out sweetness. There are several varieties of radicchio, each from specific regions of Italy. Radicchio di Treviso has elongated leaves and a milder flavor. Radicchio di Chioggia is round and has a more pronounced bitterness. Some varieties are forced, similar to Belgian endive, grown in darkness to reduce bitterness and create tender leaves. Nutritionally, radicchio provides vitamins K and C, folate, and various minerals. The bitter compounds and anthocyanins contribute to its potential health benefits. From a culinary perspective, radicchio adds color, texture, and a bitter counterpoint that balances rich or sweet flavors. Understanding the pigments and bitter compounds in radicchio helps us appreciate why it looks and tastes the way it does, and how plants use color and flavor as both defense and communication. Arugula contains glucosinolates that create a peppery bite. Arugula, also called rocket or roquette, is a leafy green with a distinctive peppery, slightly bitter flavor. This flavor comes from glucosinolates, sulfur-containing compounds that are broken down by enzymes when the plant is chewed, releasing isothiocyanates. These are the same compounds that give horseradish and mustard their heat. In arugula, the concentration is lower, creating a pleasant peppery bite rather than overwhelming heat. Arugula has been eaten since ancient Roman times. It was considered an aphrodisiac and was often grown in gardens dedicated to Priapus, the god of fertility. Romans used arugula in salads and cooked dishes, appreciating its bold flavor. The plant fell out of favor in many parts of Europe during the Middle Ages, but remained popular in Italy. In recent decades, arugula has experienced a resurgence, becoming a common salad green worldwide. Arugula is fast-growing and easy to cultivate, ready to harvest just a few weeks after planting. It grows best in cool weather. In hot weather, the plant bolts, sending up a flower stalk and producing more intense, bitter flavors as glucosinolate levels increase. From a nutritional perspective, arugula is rich in vitamins A, C, and K, folate, calcium, and potassium. The glucosinolates it contains have been studied for their potential health benefits, including anti-cancer properties and support for detoxification. Arugula also contains nitrates, which the body converts into nitric oxide, a molecule that helps dilate blood vessels and may improve athletic performance and cardiovascular health. The peppery flavor of arugula is polarizing. Some people love it, while others find it too strong. Flavor preferences are influenced by genetics, past experiences, and cultural background. Understanding the chemistry of arugula's flavor can help us appreciate it and adjust preparation methods. Younger leaves are milder, while mature leaves are more peppery. Mixing arugula with other greens or pairing it with sweet or fatty ingredients can balance its intensity. Carrots can help detect adulteration because of their unique sugars. Carrots contain a unique combination of sugars, including glucose, fructose, and sucrose. But they also contain a disaccharide called lactose, though in much smaller amounts than dairy. Wait, that is incorrect. Carrots do not contain lactose. This is a common misconception. What makes carrot chemistry interesting is their high concentration of carotenoids and their sugar composition, which is primarily sucrose. Scientists have used the specific ratios of sugars and other compounds in carrots to detect food fraud, such as diluting carrot juice with cheaper ingredients or mislabeling products. Analytical techniques like high-performance liquid chromatography can create a chemical fingerprint of authentic carrot products, which can then be compared to samples to verify authenticity. This kind of food science is increasingly important as supply chains become more complex and fraud becomes more sophisticated. Carrots also contain polyacetylenes, unusual compounds that have antifungal and potentially anti-cancer properties. One called falcarinol has been studied for its ability to protect against colon cancer in animal studies. These compounds give raw carrots a slightly bitter undertone that disappears with cooking. Understanding the complete chemistry of carrots, beyond just beta-carotene, reveals the complexity of even simple vegetables and the scientific tools used to protect food quality and authenticity. Parsley is rich in apigenin and other flavonoids. Parsley is often relegated to the role of garnish, a decorative afterthought on a plate. But this herb, technically a vegetable since we eat its leaves, is nutritionally dense and chemically interesting. Parsley is one of the richest sources of vitamin K, a vitamin essential for blood clotting and bone health. It also provides vitamin C, vitamin A, folate, and iron. Beyond vitamins and minerals, parsley contains high levels of flavonoids, particularly apigenin. Apigenin is a plant compound that has been studied for its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and potential anti-cancer properties. It may also have calming effects and support brain health. Parsley comes in two main varieties. Curly parsley has tightly ruffled leaves and a mild flavor. Flatleaf parsley, also called Italian parsley, has broader, flat leaves and a stronger, more complex flavor. Both varieties belong to the Apiaceae family, related to carrots, celery, and fennel. Parsley has been cultivated for over 2,000 years, originating in the Mediterranean. The ancient Greeks associated parsley with death and used it to make wreaths for tombs, but they also recognized its medicinal properties. Romans ate parsley to freshen their breath after meals, particularly after consuming garlic. Parsley contains chlorophyll, which can help neutralize odors, though the idea that it eliminates garlic breath is more folklore than proven science. From a gardening perspective, parsley is a biennial, meaning it has a 2-year life cycle. In the first year, it produces leaves. In the second year, it sends up a flower stalk and produces seeds before dying. Gardeners usually grow it as an annual, harvesting the leaves in the first year. Understanding parsley's nutritional density and chemical compounds helps us appreciate that garnishes can be powerhouses, that traditional uses often have scientific basis, and that even small amounts of nutrient-dense foods contribute to overall health. Scallions are immature onions that never form bulbs. Scallions, also called green onions or spring onions, look like young onions with long green leaves and a small white base. But while they resemble immature onions, some varieties are actually bred to never form a bulb. These varieties are harvested specifically for their tender leaves and mild flavor. Other scallions are simply regular onions harvested early before the bulb develops. The green tops of scallions are edible and flavorful, containing chlorophyll and different flavor compounds than the white base. The white part contains more sulfur compounds, giving it a sharper, more onion-like taste. The green part is milder and slightly sweet. This dual nature makes scallions versatile in cooking. Scallions have been cultivated in China for thousands of years and are essential in Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and many other Asian cuisines. They are used raw as garnishes, cooked in stir-fries, and incorporated into pancakes, dumplings, and noodle dishes. From a nutritional perspective, scallions provide vitamins A, C, and K, along with various minerals and antioxidants. The sulfur compounds they contain have antimicrobial properties and may support cardiovascular health. Scallions are easy to grow and regenerate quickly. If you place the white base with roots in water or soil, it will often regrow new green shoots. This makes scallions one of the most forgiving and sustainable vegetables to grow at home, even in small spaces or indoors. Understanding that scallions represent a different growth stage or a different variety of alliums helps us appreciate the diversity within this family and the ways different cultures have selected and used these plants. Snow peas and snap peas are eaten with their pods. Most pea varieties are shelled, with only the seeds inside the pod consumed. But snow peas and snap peas are bred to have tender, edible pods with minimal membrane, allowing the entire pod and peas to be eaten together. This is the result of selective breeding for specific traits. Snow peas have flat pods with small peas inside. They are harvested before the peas fully develop, when the pods are still tender. Snap peas are a more recent development, bred in the 1970s by crossing snow peas with traditional shelling peas. They have plump, round pods with full-sized peas inside, combining the sweetness of shelling peas with the crisp, edible pod of snow peas. Both types are popular in stir-fries, salads, and as snacks because of their crisp texture and sweet flavor. They can be eaten raw or lightly cooked. Overcooking destroys their texture, making them mushy and less appealing. The pods contain fiber, vitamins C and K, and various minerals. The peas inside provide protein, making these vegetables more nutritionally complete than many others. From a plant breeding perspective, developing snap peas required identifying and enhancing genetic traits that controlled pod texture and membrane thickness. The success of snap peas demonstrates how breeding can create entirely new vegetables that combine the best characteristics of existing varieties. Snow peas and snap peas are also nitrogen fixers, like other legumes. They form symbiotic relationships with rhizobium bacteria in their roots, which convert atmospheric nitrogen into forms the plant can use. This reduces the need for nitrogen fertilizer and can improve soil quality for subsequent crops. Understanding the breeding and biology of these peas helps us appreciate the innovation in agriculture and the ongoing development of new foods. Carrots grow best in loose soil because they are taproots. Carrots develop a single, thick taproot that extends deep into the soil. This root serves as energy storage for the plant, accumulating sugars and starches. For the root to grow straight and well-formed, it needs loose, friable soil without rocks or compacted layers. If a carrot encounters an obstacle while growing, it will fork or twist around it, creating irregular shapes. This is why carrot growers prize sandy, loamy soils that drain well and allow roots to penetrate easily. The taproot structure is an adaptation that allows the plant to access water and nutrients deep in the soil, giving it an advantage during dry periods. Wild carrots have much smaller, tougher roots than cultivated varieties. Thousands of years of selection enlarged the root and made it sweeter and less fibrous. From a growth perspective, the carrot plant is biennial. In the first year, it grows leaves and stores energy in its root. In the second year, it uses this stored energy to send up a tall flower stalk, produce seeds, and complete its life cycle. However, we harvest carrots in their first year, before they flower, when all their energy is concentrated in the root. If left in the ground, the carrot would become woody and bitter as the plant redirects resources to reproduction. Understanding the biology of carrot growth helps gardeners create ideal conditions and appreciate why soil quality matters so much for root vegetables. It also reveals the life strategy of biennial plants, which invest heavily in storage before reproducing. And so, dear listener, our journey through the garden comes to a gentle close. From the orange pigments of carrots to the sulfur chemistry of onions, from the cell division of radishes to the cold sweetening of turnips, we have wandered through soil and science, discovery and cultivation. We have seen how vegetables are not just food, but living systems shaped by evolution and human hands over thousands of years. They are chemistry and biology in edible form, offering nutrients, flavors, and lessons about the natural world. They remind us that the ordinary is often extraordinary when examined closely. That beneath the surface of every meal lies a story of adaptation, selection, and survival. That what grows in the ground connects us to ancient farmers, distant cultures, and the fundamental processes of life itself. As you lie here, breathing slowly, letting your thoughts settle like seeds in soil, imagine a garden bathed in soft evening light. Picture rows of green leaves, swelling roots beneath the earth, flowers waiting to bloom. See the patience of plants, growing silently, converting sunlight into nourishment, storing energy for those who will harvest them. Feel the quiet rhythm of growth, the slow unfurling of leaves, the steady accumulation of sugars and starches. All of it unfolding without hurry, without worry, simply following the ancient patterns written into every cell. The vegetables we have explored tonight have sustained empires, sparked scientific discoveries, crossed oceans, and adapted to climates around the world. They have been medicine and food, currency and symbol. They have taught us genetics, biochemistry, ecology, and nutrition. And they continue to grow, season after season, patiently waiting to nourish and teach us. If your eyes are growing heavy, there is nothing left to do but rest. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and drift into the stillness, into the quiet earth where seeds sleep and roots reach down. Let the gentle science of growing things carry you softly into sleep, into dreams, into the deep and restful dark where all things grow. Good night.